But that's not the storyline. The storyline of this game that took place today on Amazon Prime is the WNBA referees. I mean, they showed up, they showed out, and they called a hell of fouls against Caitlin Clark. Now, I told y'all there had to be a shift within these referees, and we synced it on display today. I mean, you couldn't even breathe on Kane Clark. Foul, 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 foul. And not to mention, there was one point in this game where Caitlin Clark played. I mean, had 6 shots. The sound of the impact echoed through the arena, and for one terrifying second, the entire basketball world held its breath as Caitlin Clark hit the hardwood with sickening force. It wasn't just a common foul or a typical basketball play. It was a brutal, targeted collision that looked like it could have ended her career before the season even truly got underway. Elena Smith came in with a level of aggression that left fans and teammates stunned, and the immediate fear for Clark's future was written all over the faces of everyone in the building. This was the nightmare scenario, where the league's biggest star is nearly taken out by a flagrant hit that crossed every line of professional sportsmanship. The atmosphere turned toxic instantly, as the realization sank in that this wasn't just a game anymore, but a battle for survival on the court. Point in this game where Kayla Clark plays, had 6 shots attempts. Mind you, she only took 6 or 7 shots attempts and had 20 under score points. Caitlin Clark looked at like feeble world basketball. Caitlin Clark. Now, there's people that was criticizing Kayla Clark for possibly struggling from 3, not finding her shot, not finding her way. That stopped today. Caitlin Clark showed up and showed out. Showed up and showed out. Bro, this was going to half. Stephanie White was absolutely livid on the sidelines, her face turning a shade of red that told the whole story of her internal fury. She didn't just see a foul. She saw a blatant attempt to intimidate and potentially injure the cornerstone of her entire rotation. The officials were forced to review the play, as the tension reached a breaking point, eventually upgrading the hit to a flagrant one. But for Coach White, a simple flagrant call wasn't nearly enough to address the gravity of what had just happened to her star player. You could see her shouting at the referees, demanding better protection for a player who is clearly being targeted every single night. It was a boiling point for the Indiana Fever, a moment where the coaching staff realized that the physical toll on Clark was reaching an unacceptable level. Raven Johnson is playing so damn good right now. Stephanie White is going to have to somehow figure out a way to implement Caitlin Clark in this lineup. Some way, somehow. This is how Kayla Clark ultimately did. She did not play none of the fourth quarter. The Dallas Wings played Paige kind of excessively. Now, granted, the Indiana Fever did lose the game. AI Boston did not play. Lexi Hall did not play, and that was pretty much it. But overall, Kayla Clark put on a master clinic today, bro. She showed the hit by Alana Smith wasn't just a lapse in judgment. It was a physical statement that the rest of the league isn't going to roll over for the rookie sensation. When the referees went to the monitor, the replay showed the sheer force of the contact, confirming what everyone in the stands already knew. It was a flagrant one, a heavy penalty intended to curb the rising aggression, but the damage was nearly done. Clark was seen trying to walk off the pain, her face etched with a mix of agony and pure defiance. This wasn't the first time she's been targeted, but this specific hit felt different, like a line had been crossed that could have changed the trajectory of the entire year. The intensity in the building was suffocating, as fans waited to see if their superstar would even be able to continue after such a hit. She's seen what ESPN wrote about her. She's seen that she ended up number 10 on that damn list. And you want to know what she did? She responded with a performance like we see on the screen, balled out, hooped the ass, and the referees had her back to make sure she put belt-to-ass defender that tried to come in her way. I'm super happy with the WNBA referees, but something I'm not happy with is Stephanie White. I am not happy with the defensive schemes that Stephanie White has been calling. I am not happy with what she has been running, and that damn show is not happy. Despite the brutal attack and the physical punishment she endured, what Caitlin Clark did next was nothing short of legendary. Most players would have been rattled or played tentatively for the rest of the night, but Clark responded by putting on an absolute masterclass that silenced her critics. She played only 16 minutes, yet managed to rack up a staggering 20 points, showing the world that she is built for this level of pressure. She looked like the superstar we all saw at the collegiate level, finding her rhythm and hitting shots that seemed impossible given the circumstances. It was a performance fueled by pure adrenaline and a desire to prove that no amount of physical intimidation could slow her down. She wasn't just playing basketball. She was sending a message to every defender in the WNBA. Happy with is Stephanie White. I am not happy with the defensive schemes that Stephanie White has been calling. I am not happy with what she has been running. And that damn show is not happy with Monique Billings. Monique Billings played like __. She played like ass. And me personally, KK definitely needs to start, bro. Definitely needs to start. Now, there was a moment in the game where Caitlin Clark kind of scared France. Now, it was a flagrant foul that was occurred, and this is when we knew her second team's first. The efficiency she displayed was mind-blowing, shooting 9 of 10 from the field and showing a level of precision that few veterans can match. There were people criticizing her recently, claiming she was struggling from behind the arc or finding it hard to adjust to the pro game. But that narrative died today. Clark was 2 for 3 from three-point land and looked completely in control of the floor despite the chaos swirling around her. She only had 3 turnovers against her 2 assists, maintaining a level of composure that shouldn't be possible for someone who just survived a flagrant attack. Stephanie White watched as her star player dismantled the defense with surgical precision, proving that she's indeed the best player in women's basketball today, regardless of what the rankings might say. Chris played 20 minutes, ended up with 20 points. Caitlin Clark ultimately outperformed her and played less minutes. The final score of the game was 95-80, absolute. All of them who aren't named Caitlin Clark have forgotten how to play in gamers, bro. As well, aside from the experiments, there's still a lot to improve on both sides of the court. Let the cut sun come and let the team start working on what matters. And another reason I believe things is not going as fluid is because of the long layoff. Man, I believe training camp started kind of late. And I'm not. Speaking of rankings, it seems like Caitlin Clark saw that recent ESPN article where they had the audacity to list her at number 10. It's clear she took that disrespect personally and used it as fuel for this performance. You could see the chip on her shoulder with every move she made, as if she was playing against the entire sports media world as much as the Dallas Wings. She responded to the doubt with the kind of performance we usually only see from all-time greats who feel slighted. Every bucket she scored felt like a direct response to those who question her impact. She put the league on notice that she isn't just another rookie. She is a generational talent who knows exactly what she's worth. That ESPN list looks more ridiculous with every passing minute she spends on the hardwood. Monique Billings did not look good at all. I think Stephanie White is definitely going to have to reconsider this starting lineup. I believe KK is slowly improving and showing us she deserves to be a starter. I don't want to hear nothing about seniority. If KK keep playing at a very high level, which I think very much is able to do, they really need to think about starting KK in a couple games because she is a monster in the paint. And I feel like it's just, they got to figure out a way to get this lineup sorted out. Raven Johnson looked at magnificent. One of the most interesting shifts during this game was the behavior of the referees, who finally seemed to realize they needed to protect the league's greatest asset. For a while, it felt like you could do anything to Clark without a whistle, but today was different. They were calling fouls if a defender even breathed on her, showing a massive shift in how she's being officiated. It's about time the league stepped up to ensure that their stars aren't being hunted on the court. This protection allowed Clark to get to the free throw line 13 times, where she converted 11 of those attempts. While some fans might complain about the whistles, it's a necessary change to prevent the kind of career-ending injuries that nearly occurred during that flagrant foul earlier in the matchup. That criticized me, talk __ about me, lost them subscribers. I told y'all Raven Johnson was going to do this. Now watch. This could be another week of everybody changing her tune. Oh, raving this, raving that. When all these guys hated on that girl and they did not want her on this team. Get down in the comment section. Let me know y'all thoughts about this. Till next time, check the haters. However, even with Clark's heroics, Stephanie White is still facing some massive headaches with the rest of her lineup and defensive schemes. While Clark was thriving, other parts of the team looked completely lost, which is why the Fever ultimately fell to the Wings. The coach is going to have to find a way to implement Clark more effectively with the rest of the roster, because right now it looks like a one-woman show. White was clearly frustrated with how the team handled the pressure when Clark wasn't on the floor and the defensive lapses were glaring. It's a strange paradox, where you have the best player in the world performing at a peak level, yet the team as a whole is still struggling to find its identity and finish games with a win in the column. Monique Billings had an afternoon she would probably like to forget, as her performance was described as nothing short of disappointing by those watching closely. She played like shut for most of the game, failing to provide the support that Clark and the rest of the starters desperately needed. It was a glaring hole in the Fever strategy, and it's something that Stephanie White is going to have to address immediately if they want to be competitive. When you have a star like Clark putting up historic numbers in limited minutes, you can't have other key players disappearing when the game is on the line. The disparity in effort and execution between the top of the roster and the supporting cast was one of the most frustrating aspects of the entire game for the coaching staff. On the flip side, Raven Johnson has been playing so damn good lately that she's becoming impossible to ignore in the rotation. She is putting on a defensive masterclass and showing that she belongs in this backcourt alongside Clark for the long haul. There were plenty of haters who didn't want her on this team, but she is proving them wrong with every defensive stop and every smart play she makes. Stephanie White is going to have to figure out a way to get Johnson and Clark more minutes together, because that backcourt duo looks like the future of the franchise. Johnson brings a level of intensity and grit that balances out Clark's offensive brilliance, creating a dynamic that could eventually turn the Fever into a legitimate championship contender, if they can just figure out the rest. The game against the Dallas Wings also featured a high-profile matchup with Paige Bueckers, who played 20 minutes and put up 20 points of her own. While Bueckers was impressive, Clark ultimately outperformed her despite playing fewer minutes and dealing with far more physical abuse. It's a testament to Clark's efficiency that she can have a greater impact on the game in 16 minutes than most stars have in an entire night. The final score of 95-80 in favor of the Wings doesn't tell the whole story of who the best player on the floor was. Aside from Clark and Johnson, it felt like the rest of the Fever roster forgot how to play basketball at a professional level, which is a major concern as they move deeper into the season and the competition gets tougher. There's also the issue of the long layoff and the late start to training camp, which seemed to affect the rhythm of several players on the court. You could see the rust on many of the young ladies as they struggled with basic execution and defensive rotations. It's not an excuse for the loss, but it's a reality that Stephanie White is trying to manage as she integrates new pieces into her system. The lack of fluidity was obvious whenever Clark wasn't directly involved in the play, leading to stagnant possessions and easy buckets for the Wings. It's going to take time for this team to gel, but time is a luxury they don't really have when the spotlight is this bright and the expectations are this high for their rookie superstar to lead them to victory. Caitlin Clark's ability to draw fouls and get to the line is becoming one of her most lethal weapons in the WNBA. By making 11 out of 13 free throws in such a short amount of time, she's proving that she can score even when her jumper isn't the primary focus. This bell-toe backside mentality, as some are calling it, shows that she isn't afraid of the contact. In fact, she's starting to embrace it. She's putting pressure on every defender who tries to get physical with her, forcing them to either back off or give up easy points at the stripe. It's a savvy vet move from a rookie, and it's driving opposing coaches crazy. She's learning how to use the league's new emphasis on protecting her to her absolute advantage, turning a negative situation into a scoring feast. We also have to talk about the decision to sit Clark for the entire fourth quarter, a move that left many fans scratching their heads, given how close the game could have been. Stephanie White clearly has a plan for managing Clark's minutes, especially after the flagrant foul, but it's hard to watch the team struggle while their best player sits on the bench. It felt like the Fever surrendered the game once they realized the supporting cast couldn't keep up with the Wings' pace. While protecting Clark's health is the top priority, There's a delicate balance between safety and being competitive. Fans want to see the best player on the court, and it's a tough pill to swallow when the team goes down by double digits while the star is relegated to a spectator role for the most important part of the game. The performance of KK has also been a bright spot that Stephanie White needs to consider when looking at her starting lineup. KK is showing that she deserves a spot among the starters, and the talk about seniority needs to be put to rest. If a player is producing at a high level and showing they can handle the physicality of the paint, they need to be on the floor. KK is a monster in the interior and provides the kind of rebounding and toughness that the Fever are currently lacking in their starting unit. It's becoming clear that the current lineup isn't working as well as it should, and White might need to make some bold moves to shake things up and provide Clark with the right personnel to succeed long-term. The Dallas Wings played excessively physical throughout the night, not just on the flagrant foul, but on almost every possession. They clearly had a game plan to try and rattle the Fever by making every bucket a struggle. While it worked in terms of winning the game, it raised a lot of questions about the line between tough defense and dangerous play. When you have stars like Clark and Buckers on the court, the league has a responsibility to ensure the game doesn't devolve into a wrestling match. The fact that Aaliyah Boston and Lexi Hull didn't even play in this one made the situation even more difficult for Indiana. It was a short-handed roster trying to survive against a very aggressive opponent, and the results reflected that disparity. Caitlin Clark's fadeaway jumper is becoming one of the hardest shots to guard in the entire league, regardless of who is defending her. Even when the Wings tried to double-team her or send taller defenders her way, she found ways to create space and get her shot off. It's a move that looks effortless but requires incredible strength and balance, especially after taking the kind of hit she took today. Watching her score 11 points in the first quarter alone was a reminder of why she was the #1 pick. She makes the game look easy in a way that very few players ever have. If she can maintain this level of scoring efficiency while the rest of the team catches up, the Fever are going to be a very dangerous problem for the rest of the league soon. The future backcourt of Raven Johnson and Caitlin Clark is something that every Fever fan should be incredibly excited about. Johnson is developing a respectable jumper that, if it becomes consistent, will make her one of the best two-way players in the game. Pairing her defensive intensity with Clark's offensive gravity creates a nightmare for opposing guards. They are already starting to show glimpses of chemistry that could define this franchise for the next decade. Stephanie White has a gold mine with these two, but she has to be willing to trust them and give them the minutes they need to grow together. It's a process, but the ceiling for this duo is higher than almost any other backcourt in the WNBA right now. We also can't ignore the fact that Monique Billings and Aaliyah Boston are going to have to be the anchors on the boards if this team is going to turn things around. Rebounding was a major issue in this game, and you can't expect Clark to do everything on both ends of the floor. When the post players struggle to secure the ball, it puts an immense amount of pressure on the guards to transition perfectly every time. Stephanie White's frustration with the defensive schemes and the lack of rebounding was palpable throughout the game. There's a lot of work to be done in the paint, and it starts with the veterans holding it down and providing a physical presence that matches what they're getting from their opponents. The narrative around Caitlin Clark is shifting rapidly, and this game was a major turning point in how she is perceived by both fans and the league. The days of people saying she can't handle the physicality of the WNBA are over,